Hello, and welcome to the Paizo Art of Paizo panel. I'm Sonja Morris, the Managing Art Director. And
I'm Adam Vick. I was primarily the art director for a variety of Starfinder products, but I've been moving a little bit more into marketing and doing some of the animated trailers for our APs and other video work.
I'm Kent Hamilton. I'm one of the art directors and the concept artist.
So today we're gonna start out looking at some of our favorite pieces from the year, starting with some Pathfinder art and then moving into some Starfinder art. So let's look at the first slide. So this is artwork from the Ancestry guide, and I just really love the way that we've started reconcepted, I guess, the catfolk. I think they really, really look great now. I love that they're more cat-like and less kind of weird, pudgy. I don't even know what they were before. They look really great now, so I'm very excited about that. Of course, a Suli and a Ratfolk, which looks a little nasty, but also great. So it's very cool.
The cat has very good feline features.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So let's move to the next slide. This is art from the Monkey Expanse, which was nice to work on. We got to sort of get more colorful with our art and really expand the races and how we cover ethnicities, and just really there's some very cool artwork in this book. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The whole book is just filled with so much awesome stuff.
I know, right? Yeah, it's just so cool. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. This is art from Bestiary 3. Basically, cool. It was so hard to pick my favorite 3 pieces from that because there's so much really good art in it. Yeah. Like, there's some really cool pieces in it.
That crocodile guy is amazing.
Yeah, do you remember? Right? I'm like looking at his outfit, and it's like kind of like a pirate. It's kind of like Renaissance-y looking. Like, I'm trying to figure out. Do you remember at all what the prompt was with that? Like what?
I don't remember. I don't exactly remember the directive, but it's a were crocodile, so he was human, or she was human, and then they've transformed into this. So yeah, it's very, very, it's just so cool. And that clockwork dragon is just amazing. The detail on it is just amazing.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next slide.
Some very good beasties to drop into your game, for sure.
Right? Yeah. So this is a piece that I ordered for Agents of Edgewatch. And I love the little detail of him holding the feathers in his talons. It's like so like kind of weird, but also like the detail of it is, I don't know, it's so cool to me.
Do you remember what the feathers are supposed to represent? I almost feel like it's like a bunch of quills, like he's going to be writing you up.
I believe that is exactly why they are there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like, where are all the ink pots though? That's
right. Okay. So let's move to the next one. We've got some art from the Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. And this is, so you can see our swashbucklers being chased by a giant spider and a very angry dinosaur. Yeah. And this is just really, he's really one of my favorite artists to work with. His name is Christoph Peters, and I had to show a piece of his work because
Yeah,
It's just so
it's
awesome.
beautiful.
Yeah, the textures are amazing on it. The colors look so good too.
Yeah. Even the spider being in the background, but it's still so detailed and so great. It's so beautiful to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
awesome.
just really interesting, like depth of field without losing any sort uh, of the detail by pushing things into shadow is really cool.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so that
Nice.
ends the Pathfinder. Now we're going to move into some Starfinder. I'm going to let Adam take over.
Oh, okay. So this was a piece from Devastation Arc, and I just really loved just like this crazy ice world. Kind of had a little bit of a Hoth feel to it, and also this was kind of the introduction to the civs that were kind of the big bad in this volume. And I believe Kent, right? You concepted kind of how
Yeah,
the civs look, didn't you? Yeah.
yeah, it was one of my first projects once I was on staff, and they just gave me a bunch of, like, I think it was a horseshoe crab and a starfish and a spider and a scorpion and all these different things, and they're like, "Can you do something with this?" And that's where the sieve came from.
Yeah, they look really, really cool. It's kind of interesting, like, you know, their body shapes and then trying to give them armor and then a weapon too and make them functional. But I think it all came together, and I just really love like the Ouroboros on here and just the general battle scene. I just thought it turned out pretty good, and so that was like probably one of the last or first pieces ordered for the Devastation arc volume, which was done last year. So that kind of started from last con till now. And this was done by Pixeloid Studio, who are a great team that we work with for a variety of our products. We can go on to the next slide now. Ooh, yeah. So this is just kind of a cross section of different different bad guys and various NPCs within the Fly Free or Die adventure path. And one, I really love the guy with the flamethrower. He's a part of the Golden League. He's a Golden League hitman, and just really thought the action and the lighting was done really well on him. And then we have kind of one of the guys from a Callistocrat, and he's essentially kind of undead, but then also like a weird silicone android. Just a cool combination here. Yeah, and then we got one of the Lost Pirates, and this just kind of gives a good cross section of all the different lower level enemies and characters that you can encounter in the Fly Free or Adventure path. And this was done by an artist named Renan Roberto, and he does really good work. And I just really love these characters that he did. So haven't had a chance yet to check them out, you should, because this is a very cool AP that has a lot of different cross sections of different types of characters and adventures and smuggling, and yeah, just kind of hits a lot of the bases of spacefaring fantasy, I think. We can go on to the next one. And this is just this is a corporation opener. We got Abdar Corp here, and I just really like because this kind of just shows, you know, a city, kind of a cityscape. It's a little Blade Runner esque, but I think it's been pushed into its own thing as well. And I just really love
kind
how
of a cool establishing shot.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that there's a lot. You know, the setting in Starfinder is so diverse and so huge, and there's just can be so many different things, but I really like this kind of just nitty gritty technological, you know, cityscape, and thought it did a good job of kind of immersing you and giving you an idea of where some of these like the corporations, the more grounded parts of Starfinder, you know, they also have a place in these worlds. And even though this is a little bit fantastical, it's not too far off from something that, you know, is in our near future, maybe. So
yeah, totally. It's the atmosphere is amazing. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing for the Fly Free or Die adventure path that I just think does a good job of kind of helping establish and immerse you in that world. We can go on to the next one. Ooh, these guys, this cast characters. So this was from this was part of also what I help order is maybe you guys have read some of the web fiction that we've been doing and for Starfinder and for Pathfinder. And so these guys were some of the characters for the Misery's Company fiction, and just really loved how this crew turned out. Had a really good vibe to them. The artist, Valerie Dryzek, she did an excellent job. Really loved the uplifted bear. And, of course, the Isoki, the Shirin, and it was just like a diverse but really good representation of these races and types of characters. And each one of them in the story has a cool little background to them. And I thought that she did a really good job kind of representing them and just giving you an idea of like a ragtag space crew and with our Starfinder characters and races. And yeah, so if you haven't seen any or read any of these short novellas fiction, you can subscribe to them, and you get a good story. And I believe a lot of these characters have stats, and you can incorporate them, and it's just a cool little project. And this was the ship that went along with them, and just another. This was by Franklin Chan, and just a cool, just another cool little ship within the Starfinder world, and just another representation of the wide variety of different things out there. And this is their little skiff that they're having to shoot around on. So thought it was a good representation. And I think we got one more. Oh yeah. And this is the last. This was also for a while I was doing the organized play stuff. And here's a cross section of characters from some of the newer scenarios. And these were done by Sebastian Rodriguez, another awesome guy that we have that works on a variety of stuff for us. And I just thought this was a cool section. We got an Ice Devil here, and we have Idra Prex, who is kind of like an alien scholar and just has a really cool feeling to him. And then we got the Briannery Otter Race, which I love. These guys are awesome. And even though he looks a little bit more like a scholar, like I would think, but you never know what you're going to get and how these guys turn out sometimes. And some are a little more fearsome looking than others, but they might have a more. They're not as evil as they may look. It kind of goes back and forth sometimes. But I just thought this was a really cool cross representation of some of the encounters and people and different people or different races that will help you out in Starfinder society. So you guys can kind of check these guys out if you haven't with that too. So yeah, I think those are all my slides, just kind of giving a good representation of the different types of art and characters across the different products.
Yeah, so now I think what we'll do is we'll move into the video that Kent made of himself drawing what you guys voted on. So I don't know, Kent, do you want to kind of talk about what ended up winning and all that?
So with all the adjectives, the words that won were fiend, wings, freezing, and smoky. So trying to figure out this concept, fiend and wings, are kind of the big influencers, and freezing ends up being sort of inspiration for color as well as general aesthetic, and then smoky is almost tertiary sort of aspect that like helps bring this thing to life. So as you can see in the drawing right here, I'm not spending too much time designing a story for this thing as much as just considering a composition, how it's going to sit on the page, it being a creature. I'm trying to sell more its anatomy than anything. It doesn't really have a costume or anything like that to help with its storytelling. So I'm really just thinking about, how to make this thing cool with a bunch of wings and spikes and horns and how to make it fiendish. So this is pretty typical for how I get started with kind of a one-run illustration. It's just drawing out all my different ideas. I typically try and do at least 3, because your first idea is not often your best one. And as you draw, like, you pick up more ideas from, like, maybe I drew a line here and that's inspiring a whole different idea. Let me explore that now in a different drawing. So I'm just doing really quick sketches to try and get an idea of like what this thing could look like. At this point, I decided, it being an ice fiend, I wanted it to be really thin and skeletal because I thought that looked very cold and icicle-like. And then I'm also considering like how the smoke could play into it. And so I went with my second idea. You can see me here just organizing some of my files. And I turn down the opacity and I just start drawing over it with just a finer pass at what this thing should look like for its details.
I really love that you went through the first couple iterations before you settled on this one here. I think that.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the iterative process is so important to me too, because like, say I draw something 3 different ways and I end up liking, my second drawing like I did here. There might have been something in the third drawing that I can reincorporate into this drawing instead. And I never would have considered it or seen it or thought of it had I not done that third drawing. I ended up picking this one mostly because I thought it was going to sit well on the page.
Hey, Kent, we've got a question for you. Do you do warm-up sketches before you do work like this?
Sometimes ideations, because ideations are typically at the start of any process for me, doing concepts. So they're such quick drawings that they end up being the warm-up. I don't usually spend like an hour drawing a whole illustration or doing anything like that. I draw so consistently that I'm usually warmed up one day to the next. It's funny, actually, within my schedule, just on Mondays, I usually spend a little more time doing a warm-up sketch just because 2 days of the weekend has slowed me down. But yeah, I actually, I don't keep a sketchbook really anymore just because I'm drawing so much for work. And I don't know, you guys keep me busy enough that like I'm just drawing all the time.
A good problem to have.
Yeah, a very good problem to have. Some would say it's not a problem at all.
I love this, like I was saying with you earlier, like I purposely didn't want to watch or see any of this either, just so I could see it come to life like everybody else right now. So it's cool to see since I usually get to see all your end work, so it's kind of cool to be able to watch your project like this too.
Well, it's just with like any of Wayne's work, like, I love his final stuff, but his sketch work is like the stuff I really get excited to see, because you start to see somebody's thought process in that, not just, their rendering ability.
Exactly.
Speaking of rendering, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you on that. Just that, it's kind of a window a little bit more into their mind, into kind of who they are a little bit, and you get to see how that idea, comes into being, which is pretty cool if you're interested in the artistic process.
So just to catch people up on what we're doing, or what I'm doing here in this point of the drawing, is I selected the entire silhouette of the creature and filled it in. That way, when it goes into a book, it is fully figured out, and none of the page from the book is showing through. It's always going to be color that is in the background, which is something that I try and always start that way. And then I went into figuring out where the shadows are, because that helps figure out the form of the overall shape. And it starts to help with the storytelling. So you can see the colors are inspired by the fact that this thing is a freezing fiend.
So in this video, you're working in Photoshop. Do you pretty much always work in Photoshop, or do you use anything else?
Pencil and paper. Photoshop, pencil and paper. That's
Okay.
where I live.
And you're using a stylus, right? You're not using a mouse.
Yeah, I use a Cintiq. A lot of people really enjoy using Wacom's Intuos, which is like a separate tablet, and you look at your own monitor and you draw off to the side. Because I spent my entire life drawing one-to-one, the Cintiq is really nice because it gives you that one-to-one feedback with what you're drawing right in front of you. You know, where your hand is where the mark is going down. So I played around with like Procreate on iPad, and that's a really fun way of working. It's got its bonuses, like, you know, you can work at a cafe and work. You don't always have to chain to your desk. Yeah. But I'm just so experienced in Photoshop now that like nothing's faster for me.
Yeah, I've tried messing around with Procreate a bit too, and it's good, but there's just so many. Once you get used to so many of those commands in Photoshop, it's kind of hard to. I found myself air-handing commands on Procreate on the iPad and nothing happening.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, when I was first learning Photoshop, I would find myself drawing in my sketchbook and, you know, doing Command Z all the time and getting really disappointed that, you know, that last line I drew didn't disappear.
Sorry, Sonia, I think I maybe interrupted you.
I was just going to say we've got a question about how long this drawing took you in real time.
God, yeah. So I marathoned this one, which usually it's funny. If I work on a painting without breaks, it usually is a lot faster because I don't come back to it later and see all the things that I hate about it and try and redo the whole thing. So this one was probably about like 3.5, 4 hours. That's pretty fast for me, actually. I think it has everything to do with the fact that this is just a monster and not you know, something with a lot of intricate clothing or light, you know, secondary light sources or anything like that. It's just rendering ice flesh.
Right. Okay.
So as I'm painting, I'm also just a big part of what I'm trying to consider is, you know, what is the texture of this thing, and, you know, how does the color move around it? How can I bring out interesting details by pushing contrast or like pushing other things into shadow? And also just thinking about like the anatomy of it and how to sell the idea that this thing is an actual moving, living, breathing creature. So like giving it lots of folds in its neck so you can help see that it's articulated there, or giving indication to it having anatomy in its skull that's similar to humans, where you have a really pronounced zygomatic arch across the cheekbone, and like also making it fantastical, so it has glowing eyes that sit in these sunken holes in its head. It's all just, you know, storytelling in every different aspect.
Kent, for part of your process for this, out of curiosity, and I don't see it, do you ever do like a digital palette off to the side that you're turning off and on, or are you just pulling all your lights and darks from the gradient that you already laid down and that you've been building up on?
So the first thing I did was I put down that gradient. A lot of what I'm doing is staying within the realm of that gradient, specifically for something like this. You can see in the upper right, that's my, hue saturation value palette. And so if I need to push to a dark, I'll go in there and push to a dark. Or what I really try and never do in a painting is use true black or true white. I always try and make it some form of color. So like you can see anytime I'm putting a highlight in there, it goes all the way to the top because that's where all the brights are. And usually not too saturated because, you know, highlights tend to be blown out by light. So you don't get really strong saturation, except for where it connects with shadow. But other than that, yeah, like for this painting, there's no like secret tertiary colors I'm putting in here. It stays pretty much within the realm of what you see. Oftentimes I'll put in like an unexpected color in an area that needs to kind of be pushed forward. And in this case, instead of doing that, I just took colors from opposite sides. So like you see in his eyeball and in his tongue, you have that kind of purplish pink brought over to the other side to bring interest over there. But also as a way of kind of keeping the whole painting cohesive and look like it all belongs to the same creature.
Totally.
So a lot of what I'm doing now in the rendering too is just like figuring out some of the shadow around that knee, trying to create levels and depth by putting things, you know, in front and behind of like the knee and the wing, and the wing on one side is going behind the knee, and you know the little spike from the wing is going in the front, just as a way of creating some dimension in how this thing sits in space, but also to give an idea of motion.
Yeah.
You know, things that have a lot of layers really help with giving a sense of motion, even though it's just a stagnant 2D illustration.
Well, you can kind of see like the muscles being formed and the tension in there, and like, you know, like he is just about to, you know, leap into action, or he's in mid action like that. So I think that is doing a good job of bringing that up. Would you say that you set your, like, what, the lighting sources in the upper left kind of coming down on him on to the top of the head and back, or do you think you kind of setting up
it's
full source here? Like
it's a little bit of a cheated light source, so it's a little bit up and to the right. You can see on his back, well, right arm, there's a cast shadow there from his left arm and from his neck. It's just a really easy light source to work with. It also sits really nicely on a page because it allows what you're painting to look like it's blending into the page around the edges a lot of the time. At least within our books where we have kind of a tan white background. So what you see right here is I completely deleted one of the wings because I just really wanted to focus on what the silhouette of this wing up here looked like. And I was getting a little lost in the weeds with the two wings, you know, where does one stop, where does the other start? And so I just got rid of it completely, and I'll bring it back later. But what I wanted to do is actually just design the shape of this thing. Because every individual part, it's one of the things that I tell a lot of the artists that I hire is, you know, make sure that you give just as much attention to the feet of this thing and do storytelling there as you do at the base. You know, everything is an opportunity, so use every opportunity you have.
This hey, Sonja, I just see it too, actually. That this kind of relates to a little bit of what you're talking about. Somebody is asking, do you have to take any steps to adapt your colors or contrast to print media as compared to any normal digital art? So I guess, you know, like, what do you think, if you know that something is just going to be living digitally, do you have any things that you know, kind of work on more if you know it's going to be something that's going to be on that white page, on that printed page?
Are you asking me or Sonja?
I'm asking you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so if something's going to live online exclusively and I know that it'll never get printed, I mean, I'll put colors in there that I never otherwise use. Like you can see this thing. I made it for, you know, PaizoCon. So it's being shown in this medium, which means I'm just having a love affair with cyan, because like that does not print great, you know, or it's hard to get a lot of form in that or make it light enough or dark enough. There's certain greens and reds that are really hard to get across on the page. And so like just using really high, fun, vibrant colors, I think whatever printer Paizo uses does a really good job of retaining a lot of that, but it is also just like when you have light showing through a monitor, you have a different spectrum of color that you're actually working with. Like, you just can't get that on a physical page. So when I'm working for printed work, I keep that in mind, and I make sure like the colors I'm using are colors that are actually able to be printed. Or at the end of a painting, I go and check and see like how it changes, and then try and retune it so that it does work printed.
Yeah, it's just so hard to tell sometimes, like I know that there's been it's funny because, as you first were a freelance artist for us, and then also the different freelancers that we hire, I'm sure there's always that initial, when you get your contributor copy in and you're like, is this what,
boy, this is way darker. Or
yeah.
Yeah, I remember I used to email you guys a lot, like, hey, do you have any like color settings? And it's just, no, you don't. Like, it just takes practice and like getting your contributor copies in and seeing how they turn out. A lot of my stuff used to print really dark until I figured out that the room I was working in, the room itself was dark, so my monitor was really bright, and so I was painting stuff incredibly dark. And as soon as it went out in the book, or even just looking at it, on my phone in a different room, I'd realize how dark the whole thing was.
That's so funny.
One good way to check that is like, as I'm painting here, you can see that palette in the upper right-hand corner. You can see the little circle where it bounces around. I'm just always color selecting and making sure that color lives in an area that, if it is dark, it's supposed to be within a certain range, and if it is light, it's supposed to be within another. So that it's not, if it's always like halfway down, I need to bring some of those lights up. And there's tools within Photoshop like levels and stuff that you can use to adjust, but it's best to do it on the front end as you're going. So right here in the painting, I'm just trying to do a little bit of storytelling with the textures in the wing. Maybe in the joint, it's a little bit frozen over, and maybe the cold is actually a part of its anatomy in some sense. And so bringing that across also just brings interest and detail into an area that, is not the primary focus, but if you look there, you still want to see something interesting.
Yeah.
Also bumping up some of the darks in here to really push the form through the body. Are we getting any questions? Do people know that they can ask questions?
There is a question. There is a question about in response to what you said about seeing your work printed. It says, "Yikes!" on what it ended up looking like when you got to see the final product, or still to this day.
Oh, to this day, everything is great. I think either I or Paizo hasn't figured out. It's probably a combination of the both. But I see my stocks now. Like it's just the whole thing's an education. I didn't even consider when I first started painting professionally that like people have different monitors, and monitors are made by different companies, and people are working within different lighting situations, and that something could turn out not the way you want it to look. But it's definitely working now.
I see a question that,
Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that they're asking about if we have a test printer in the office. And when we were in the office, we do have printers that we test on, but they're not anywhere near the level that the commercial printers that do for us. And we get proofs back from them before one that we view digitally, and then we also get one that is sent to us before everything is fully done. And at that point, it's pretty much set, but if there's anything really bad or glaring, we can usually go back and change if it absolutely needs to happen. So, sorry, Sonja, I'll let you get back in.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Is there a monster, Kent, that you do not like drawing?
This might actually surprise people. I really don't like drawing dragons. I think a lot of artists have an idea of what a dragon looks like, and I have spent no time figuring out what a dragon looks like to me. But it's also one of those things as a fantasy artist, like once you paint a dragon, that's your dragon. So,
Right.
yeah, and also like just the fact that there's such a wide variety. You know, there's a lot of ideas in how dragons are drawn or painted. You know, some have really like axe like faces, others look like crocodiles. I don't know. I haven't figured out one that looks right to me, so I don't spend a lot of time working on it either. Which probably means I'm going to get a whole assignment here just drawing dragons. But...
Well, then you'll get your dragon, man.
Then I'll figure it out. No, I've always been interested in maybe making them look like whale skulls. If you look at like a whale, their skull looks nothing like what their fleshy final form looks like. And I think
Totally.
I read that a lot of like the reason why dragons exist around the world kind of as this this idea that came up everywhere completely separately is that they found these whale skeletons washed up on the beach, and if you look at them, they have these rib cages and these long tails and these wing-like structures and these dragon-like faces.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
You wouldn't necessarily think that one of these things swims. And then also sailors would see things swimming out in the ocean and not knowing that like they blew water out of their blowhole, that catches the sun and it looks like fire out on the water. So I think also I'm also a scuba diver, so like anything nautical really makes me happy. So
all right, well the people are demanding a book of dragons from you, Kent. So I think that whale option might be the way to go, dude.
Yeah, I'll put some time into it, I guess. Whale dragon after the game.
What do you think this creature right here, do you think this would fit more within Pathfinder or maybe within Starfinder? It's giving me Starfinder vibes for some reason.
What's funny is it was giving me Starfinder vibes too because of the color. Everything in Starfinder is so saturated in that really wonderful way. I think that is actually one of the things that I love about like fiends and demons is like both, like they work everywhere. Because they don't necessarily need technology to be sci-fi. But let's say fantasy, because I think last PaizoCon I did something for Starfinder, which actually is funny. Last PaizoCon it was also something Frozen, so I put both of them next to each other in my portfolio, and they're surprisingly similar, color palette. So I need to work on some originality there.
Well, it fits within the world. So
I was totally inspired by Paizo's colors as well.
Someone wants to know if you took any anatomy classes.
Oh yeah,
as part of your studies.
I won't get too into it, but studying actual corpses and seeing them in person and understanding how all the anatomy actually works on a human body. That was actually my favorite part of my education, was learning all about that and interacting with it. And once you find out that
was looking at dead people.
In a sense. But learning about anatomy is so interesting, and learning all what each muscle does and why they why a person who is strong looks strong, and why certain parts of anatomy why somebody with really big shoulders looks strong is because to actually make those muscles strong takes a certain kind of exercise, and that is reflected in the shape. And but also just realizing that all different animals, as long as they're not an insect or something underwater, everything has all the same muscles, just squashed and stretched in all these different shapes. So designing something like a demon, it's like I'm still putting a deltoid in there. I'm still putting a bicep in there. Like, it's just whether or not it's small or large, or and yeah, I mean, working on undead stuff right now for Geb. Like, you better believe that I'm enjoying drawing dead bodies.
Oh, well, this is
so this at the end is
yeah.
just showing a quick idea of what the process was. Just a really quick sketch all the way to the left, the more refined sketch on top of that, and then the final painting all the way to the right. And yeah, that's my process.
So good.
So this is, yeah, that's what the video is for the rest of the panel. If people have questions, happy to answer. So that's the PaizoCon 2021 online monster. I think if anybody's interested in coming up with a name for it, they should.
Oh yeah, that should be one of the next polls. What were the prompts on this one again, Kent? What were the winners for it?
It was Fiend, Wings, Freezing, and Smoky. So at the very end, I put Smoky in just really subtly, because that's another thing I like to play with in design. Is like, just because an art brief says like, you know, this thing should be on fire, it doesn't mean it should be like horribly engulfed in flames and, you know, the number one thing that you should be noticing. It could just be an element that is adding to it.
Yeah.
So the fact that it just has this kind of smoky mist kind of creates sort of a lore to it that is really interesting.
Totally. It's like, it's almost so cold. It's like, you know, it's like
freezing. It's like liquid
roof.
Nitrogen or
yeah, coming off of it. You know, it's like I could see this. It could go from, this could be a Pathfinder monster in some crazy ice cave, and then into the future, you know, they reemerge,
having a completely different name.
Yeah, out in different planets now, you know, terrorizing across the galaxy. It can go both ways, I think. So it's pretty awesome, man.
So one of the questions we have is how different, hard, or easier is an art piece compared to a flip mat or an AP map? I think that the answer to that is it depends on the artist. I mean, if what you know and what you do is maps, then probably the same amount of difficulty for someone who does characters, or that's what they know. It's just about what you do, what your thing is.
Yeah, your specialty, you know.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm assigning books, I also try and play to people's strengths. So there's people who do just wonderful jobs painting monsters and aliens and stuff like that, but the second you give them a real person to paint, they struggle. Like, real people to people who are really good at that, and then monsters to people who are very good at that. Like, even things that seem relatively close, trying to play to people's strengths in that way is really kind of fun, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Another question we've got is what were your thoughts when you did the tail of the creature?
Oh, you know, it just started as shapes. I think it just, well, so it's one of the things I like about drawing is, you know, even the word drawing means like you're pulling this thing out of the page. And so sometimes it's almost this Rorschach test of, you accidentally make a line and you see something and it inspires you in what to draw next. So I think I just had it hooked up because it seemed right for the composition, and I thought about, you know, the design opportunity of what that could be. Maybe this is something that goes around and snatches people up off the ground and cradles them as they get pulled away.
It's a baby.
I mean, it's a baby snatcher, ice fiend.
Then one of the names that they came up with is perfect. Cuddle Bunny.
There we go.
There you go. That's that's terrifying. That's like that uncanny contrast that's so creepy. Nope, we need to start it again.
What is this? I thought these were abandoned concepts, maybe.
No.
Okay, here's one for you, Kent. Have you ever seen your art put on a pawn that was cropped in a way that hurt your soul?
No. I think when I've done stuff that's for pawns, I've always known, and I've been very intentional about the composition to make sure that it worked. No, I have had stuff put into books that has been flipped, and so I'm seeing it completely new for the first time, and that has hurt my heart. But
Yeah. I think that kind of hits on a lot of people, Sometimes it's the way it goes, it has to fit the placement, Try to let people know that there's always going to be a side that they prefer, and you can never 100% know until you're actually in the layout stage. So,
Yeah. So that's why everything I paint now is perfectly symmetrical and looking directly at the viewer.
One of the questions we have is, will this art be posted to the blog? I'm not sure. I will talk to the team and see if we can get it up there. I think it would be very cool if we do that. I will try to make that happen. I don't know, Kent, do you have the Twitch chat open? Can you see the names they're coming up with for your creature? There's some pretty good ones.
Oh, the Cryo Demon is actually pretty good. That was the most recent post.
Yeah, there's some good ones in there.
Yeah. Ice Crag Fiend, Vapor Demon.
Snap Circle. That's we have another question of the Kent, do you ever get any of your hands confused? You often make art of a character and realize you made them left-handed or right-handed by mistake.
I don't think I've ever done that, no. If that's a problem for you, you have really good reference right in front of you. Just look at your own hands and it'll help you figure that out.
With the art team, there's a question if the Pathfinder 2 and the Starfinder art team are totally separate or if they cross over. We work on everything. We completely cross over. We are a very small team, and we all do everything.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a, at least in my case, I was a little more focused on Starfinder, but I
sure, we have primary.
Yeah.
We have primary focus, but we all work on everything.
Yeah, when duty calls, it goes all the way open. So, but yeah, I think each of us have a little bit of a specialty, though. So.
Kent, do you work on the shape of the art, making considerations for the layout, or do you just kind of do whatever?
I definitely don't do whatever. I know when something's on the page, there are certain things that we try and avoid, like a spear shooting out in one direction because that's going to be hard to wrap the text around, or wings that are taking up the whole page, or anything like that. So I do try and make the entire silhouette a sort of composition of its own, just so that it'll fit nicely on the page. Yeah, I think a starfish would probably be the worst thing that you could put into one of our books.
I think that's a concern. I think that's a concern that we all have with the artists, and try to talk to them to make sure that they are taking the page duration. But sometimes it just people get really into what they're doing, or it just is that's how it works out, and then that kind of comes into whoever's doing layout. They get to have the creative part of how to get that to fit and work, and if certain parts need to be cropped or changed a little bit, to be able to make it fit within the book. So kind of a back and forth process sometimes.
Yeah.
Kent, you went to art school, right? You're not self-taught?
Yeah, I went to Art Center College of Design, and I studied entertainment design. So did exactly what I'm doing now. But I guess, I mean, I guess self-taught to some extent because I've been drawing since I could pick up a pencil, and I have drawings, you know, that are exactly what I'm doing now, where I draw a creature or something, and here's the weapon that it uses off to the side, and here's the story about where they come from and why they look the way they look. So.
One of the questions we have is approximately how much art is ordered every month. It depends on the month, but it could be anywhere from 200 to 1,000 pieces. It really depends on what we're working on. If we're ordering, like sometimes we have to order 2 hardcovers at the same time, and so that you've seen our hardcovers, so you can imagine how many pieces we have to order for that. And some months, we're just ordering for some APs, and that's more in the hundreds. So let's see what else we got here.
And then that's about, that can be from 40 to 200 artists that are being commissioned at any time too.
Yeah, all different languages.
Yeah, and then critiquing and getting back and forth, and then working with the developers, and it can get pretty crazy sometimes.
So, what kind of cool outside projects do you work on, and does Adam still do album covers, etc.? You guys want to talk about that? I'm currently not doing any outside work. I used to do a lot of outside work, but I'm too busy to do that now. So I try not to take any more freelance projects so I don't go crazy. I don't know. You guys want to?
During the pandemic, I kind of slowed that down a little bit too, but I actually just did complete some cool silkscreen posters and a new album cover too. So,
yeah, Adam, your silkscreen posters are Adam's art is some of my favorite art, and I like that most recent silkscreen that you put out.
Me too.
I really cannot wait to have it actually right here in front of me while I'm working.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to get it done too. So, we'll see. But unfortunately, I can't really talk much about it. But, yeah, always trying to stay busy one way or another, or at least, keeping your mind, focused on something.
So what's the best way for someone to get into making art for Paizo? The best way is to email us at artsubmissions@paizo.com. It gets sent to Sarah, the creative design director, and myself, and then we go through them all and reach out to people. That's the best way. If you see us at a con and you have your portfolio, you're welcome to show it to us. I'm always happy to look over portfolios and give suggestions and, critiques. That's really the best way, though, is to email us at artsubmissions@paizo.com.
I think
also just make sure. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just make sure your art looks like our art. If you want to put your work in our books, make sure it's not a totally different style or just line and drawing kind of art. Like look at our characters, look at how they're painted, and try and do some studies.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So.
Yeah.
Here's another question. Do redraws come up a lot or just once in a while to fit the theme better? Kent, you want to take that one since you're usually the one that has to do them? Do you feel like you have to do a lot of redraws?
Yeah. Less and less. I think, oftentimes we catch stuff pretty early, just in early phase drawing, but if there's something that's changed in the rules or in the description, I'll come in and I'll work over something, or oftentimes we just reach back out to the artist and say, hey, can you change this? I don't know that happens too often because it's just part of the process as well. It's like when we get that first sketch from the artist, we say, usually, hey, this is great, or hey, we want this this thing changed.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay,
here's another question for Kent. Do you have to do research for the art you make? Maybe more monster based on real world mythology?
Yeah. I mean, I do research constantly, just either by being out in the real world and getting inspired by things that are out there, but also just like learning about, if we're doing something that is a monster that is all coral, I'm not going to just draw that based off of my imagination. I'm going to look up at like, what is coral? How does it work? Why does it look the way it looks? And, what colors are it? And, yeah, it's actually part of the fun of the job is researching that.
I gotta say real quick, I see a quick question asking about if we're at a con and if we ever want to be able just to walk around Artist Alley without people thinking we're either there to try to hire them or scope stuff. And yes, there's sometimes where I like to try to take a quick break where I can take my shirt off and just so nobody knows it, so they don't get self-conscious or I get like weird where I just really just want to go look at cool artwork and there's nothing behind that other than just being a fan, so sometimes, yeah, I always, whenever I'm at a con, I always try to get at least a 10-minute little window where I can just go pop over and just enjoy and look at what people are doing without anything else beyond it other than just the enjoyment of looking at artwork.
Yeah, I'm with
Put
Adam.
on your
So it's harder now that I've been with Paizo for so long that to not be recognized even without the Paizo shirt. So it's just the way it is.
put on the fake glasses and mustache and
You're right. Does Paizo have robust data backups? Yes, we back up both on DVD and the cloud. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we won't ever lose anything. Do we recycle art or is it always new? We pretty much always use new art. We did recycle a lot of art for the card game, especially the first sets. We pulled a lot of art from our library of art. But the further we got, the more art we had to order as we got into it because we had less art to pull from. But yeah, we pretty much try to order new art for everything we can. So.
And also, real quick, right before we end, we gotta give a big shout out to Sarah, Emily, Tony, and Kyle. Those are the rest of the art team that also do tons of heavy lifting. And so,
everything.
Yes. Yeah. So, thank you for coming to our panel. Up next is Tales of Lore, exploring the Mwangi. See the Monkey Expanse. We're showing off the Monkey Expanse like never before and giving you a look at its ancestries, cultures, geography, and adventures. Learn all about Lost Omens Monkey Expanse book and the Strengths of Thousands Adventure Path, which I also worked on, and it's super cool. So get ready for that. It's going to be super rad. And we're going to be in a Discord channel, the Art of Paizo. So if y'all want to come over there and ask us some more questions, we can cover some stuff that was asked in the Twitch chat that we didn't get to. And yeah, thank you very much for attending our panel.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.